Welcome, everybody, to Press B to Cancel. Today's a special episode for us.
Wait, what, really?
Well, yeah, I know. We do have some special moments. Tender, loving, caring moments. Don't we, Palsh?
No comment. I love you.
Not on the podcast. Too soon. Too soon.
Too soon.
Press B to cancel.
We have a special episode today. It's very special for us. We've been doing this for a couple of months now. And as is tradition for a lot of podcasts, they have a Game of the Year episode. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to start a tradition off right. I've had a few drinks. I just got back from work Christmas party, so this will be interesting. But this is Press B to Cancel's Game of the Year edition. Now, what's different for us is we're not just a retro gaming podcast, but it's definitely a large component. So when I say this is our Game of the Year, we've each selected 2 games, and they could be retro or modern. We're easy, okay?
More so, new to us.
Exactly, new to us. So I am Sick Jake. I'm this week's host, but I'm not alone, of course. As always, I'm joined by our usual crew. Werewolf, how you doing?
I'm okay. How you doing?
Was not prepared for
I'm
Kermit.
sorry. Did you want me to go on longer?
No, please no.
Bert, you're yelling, Bert.
And of course, we're also joined by the Miss Piggy to Kermit, Guy Prime of the Retro Therapy. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I've actually got 2 games picked out for every year since 1984, so I may have misunderstood the assignment.
Oh, you're gonna be late.
Yeah, but knowing you, half those games are ones I think are bad, so it's okay. We'll get through them quickly.
Yeah, 91 through 2003, hot garbage.
Yeah, just completely. The era of hot garbage. Mega Man 1, honestly. And Palsh, we're joined by Palsh 109. How are you, sir?
I'm kind of shy now because I said stuff I shouldn't have at the beginning of the pod. I'm good. Let's just keep going.
I know we've bared our hearts to each other today on this podcast. And we'll flip it over to bearing our hearts for a couple games. So I guess we've all picked our personal, game of the year. New to us. That's great. But maybe let's start with our secondaries or honorable mentions and kind of go around the table and get everybody's take on that game. So let's spin the wheel. Of course, you can edit that out later.
Says you.
GP, you want to start? What's your honorable mention for Game of the Year 2019?
I hope this is allowable, because it's still in test phase, like pre-release kind of mode, but I have to mention Savage, the Shard of Gozen by our friend Tober Prime.
No.
Bionic Commando.
No, go for it, man. Savage is, Tober Prime is a fantastic dude, man. And I've only played 5 minutes of his game, but I've watched a lot of people play it. I've been saving it for myself personally because it's early access, but if you love it, please tell us. It's awesome.
It is awesome. And knowing Tobor is cool and having watched him the game be created is a big connection that I have to it. But even without all of that, just completely objectively or subject, whichever it is, where it's just looking at it for what it is truly a fun experience, a very well composed and thought out game. If I'm not playing it, I've thought about playing it pretty much every day since I've had access to it. I have a schedule of things I try to keep, but I play it a lot of my downtime. Outside of the stream is what I'm saying.
So I want to jump in on this one since GP mentions it. I have also put a few hours into Savage, and this is a game I cannot wait to be finished.
Yes.
I really, really look forward to playing this in its final form. I kind of haven't gone back to it for that very reason. I bought it earlier. I wanted to be a supporter of the game. It ended up being badass. I love what was there, but I didn't complete what was there because I want to save the game for when it's done. I'd like to go back, and I'm sure it'll be quite different by that point, but it'll still be different, not mechanically, but drop rates and maybe a couple of stats will affect the play differently. But other than that, it'll be the same game. It's the bones are there already.
Piles of bones.
For those who haven't played it, what about this game makes it so stand out, I guess?
Well, it's retro inspired, so it's definitely like a platform type. There's a lot of great kind of like Quest, and there's an overworld map and things like that that's kind of reminiscent of, dare I say, like Final Fantasy VI when it comes to the overworld. The gameplay is fun. I don't want to say the RPG aspect, because that's a big thing to say. But, you do go town to town, you talk to a lot of the townspeople, and there's multiple threads to pull on from the get-go. Like, you've got the general idea, the opening scenes are very well done, but then once you start, you have different paths that you can do. So in that way, it's very choose-your-own adventure, and that's kind of the RPG aspect of it. But then just with as Werewolf mentioned, the stats, the different ways of lining up your inventory, the way that you want to customize your playability, it just fires across a lot of different cylinders. And on top of that, it's a beautiful looking game. But so for me, that's what it is. It's great. It's kind of the old school retro style platformer with some RPG elements that it delivers. And for as much as I've played it, I still feel like I've only scratched the surface. I think there's going to be a lot of replay value in the game, whether or not you want to play lightly or really go deep and try to get everything done.
It's like Zelda 2 with, I don't know, pick your favorite Igavania.
Yeah.
It's like those two smashed together and you're good. Symphony of the Night, Aria of Sorrow, Ordia Ecclesia, any of them. Like, pick your favorite one and it'll probably scratch that itch. But it's like that smashed together with Zelda 2. But
still completely original. Like, that's the other part of it is,
yes,
for as much as it kind of harkens to some of these things, because retro is the category, that we think of it as, it's hard not to reference things that it reminds us of, but it still is this very unique experience as well.
Palsh, did you finish it? I think you finished the current build.
No, I wish. I'm doing the same thing as Werewolf, and kind of I love it so much, and I've gotten like the hunger to play it over and over again, but I'm holding back as much as I can because I just want to wait about it, just mainly to support Tobor, and I'll be frank with that. I was like, I don't like early access, but this game was so satisfying that I just wanted to keep going with it. But I'm forcing myself not to because I want to do it when it's complete. So I'm just I'm basically itching to beat the whole game in one go, and I don't want to have to be like, I need more.
Abstinence is fun.
I will say as well, the commercial Tobar made for that game is fantastic.
Yeah, the guy gets it. Like he understands kind of that old school feeling of what is rad, like, the kind of heart of that talking about the commercial, but he gets a really good idea of what makes something fun or humorous or just truly like down to the balls awesome, if that makes sense.
Anybody who's listening to this, if you want to check out the website or for buying it on Steam, we will link it here on our own website if you're listening on pressbtocancel.com.
Hashtag sponsored, not sponsored.
Yeah,
it's a good game. I agree. All right, it's good.
Quick question: are these honorable mentions outside of our two games?
No, I figured it'd be.
Oh, okay.
Like your number one and your number two. How many games do you guys have?
We have a lot of contingencies.
I don't know. I just.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Wulff, do you want to go next then?
Okay, so I guess my honorable mention would really be Death Stranding. Like,
the walking simulator?
It was a toss-up because, yes, and you know what? A lot of people pick on this game, and like part of me really was like kind of letting go of the idea of picking a 2019 game because I played like 5 of them, and the 2 big ones were this one and Man of Medan, and I'm probably only 15 hours into Death Stranding at this point. But what I have played of Death Stranding, it starts slow, and that's no way to sell a game to anybody, I will admit. For me, a game has to have me within 2 hours for me to keep playing it. And Death Stranding did that. Not necessarily with the gameplay, but the story. I found the gameplay interesting, but the story really pulled me in right away. So as I started playing further and further, like I wanted to see what this world was. And as I got further into the game, digging into the story, the gameplay picked up too. And honestly, today, I guess a form of fast travel has opened up to me now, and I'm like building freeways and shit. It's really bizarre, but I dig on it. Like it's definitely a walking simulator or a driving simulator, whatever. It's traveling. That's what this game is traveling. You're basically traveling, picking up garbage along the way and taking it to whoever dropped it.
You basically sounded like you were you're talking about a futuristic Lord of the Rings, and I'm kind of interested.
I guess that's a good way to put it.
I'll just make fun of the walking simulator part.
Explain what the when you walk, what you have to do to keep balance. Please explain that.
Oh, yes. Okay, so it's possible for your character, especially the more weight he's carrying, to slip, trip, and fall. And so if he starts leaning, if the weight on his back or that what he's carrying starts leaning too far right, you have to hold L2 to get him to lean to the left and shift the weight back, and vice versa. And if he does end up slipping, you've got about a second and a half to push the buttons, like L and R both at the same time, to keep him from wiping out. Because if he wipes out, his cargo falls off, it takes damage, whatever.
It's so bad.
It's silly. I do agree. It's kind of silly, but it's something. I don't think it's there for the purposes of like, look at this cool gameplay loop. I think it's there to keep you engaged with the walking. Because if you were literally just running along from point to point, it would get boring. This is something that keeps you actively doing something in the game, but it's not high action, high octane. It's like, it's just keeping your attention without assaulting your senses. And I think that's kind of what the purpose was.
Like the gameplay wise, I can't stand it. But the story, the characters, from the baby strapped in a jar on your chest to the guy you're talking to with a straight face, he's wearing a metal skull on his face. Del Toro's in it. Conan O'Brien's fucking in it. I mean, you have a canteen that collects rainwater and turns it not into drinkable water, but into Monster Energy drink.
Monster Energy drink. I do think that's ridiculous. Your canteen converts rain or river water into Monster Energy drink. What the hell?
You have to urinate, and when you urinate, there's a mushroom appears, and if other people see their mushroom in their instance, they can pee on it, and it gets bigger.
Yeah, and it spawns cryptobiotes that let you regain health.
Like, this is the most amazing, fantastic game of the year that I will never, ever want to play, but I love watching it. It is so batshit insane, you can't help but love this game.
I can completely understand people not wanting to jump into this game. I get it. But for me, I like weird shit. I'm a weird dude. Like, I'm target audience.
I think that there is some science to support, if I remember the documentary correctly, the energy drink thing, because you can use that as to water your plants. Because from what I understand, it has electrolytes in the energy drink, and that's what plants crave.
Oh, damn it.
So this comes out for the PC. When this comes out for the PC, people are going to mod it. And I'm telling you, the first person that replaces Monster Energy drink with Canada's own Beaver Buzz, I will give them at least $5.
I think I need to email Beaver Buzz. We're either going to try to get sponsored or we owe them money. One of the two.
They haven't tweeted in like 3 years. It's okay. We're good.
Okay, so maybe Jolt. Should we change it to Jolt?
No, it doesn't have that lower behind it anymore.
No, that's true.
But yeah, this game, it's definitely the more you do, the faster the gameplay loop gets. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but honestly, I played for a couple hours off stream today just because I wanted to like get some of the mundane stuff done, but not major story because I'm trying to save that for an audience, you know?
What can be mundane in this game? Seriously.
Yeah, if you can't even walk right.
The poop grenades. Explain the poop grenades, please.
Oh my gosh, yes, there's so many weird things in this game. So the main character has some qualities to his blood and just his genetics in general that make it to where his waste is even a viable weapon against what they call BTs or beached things, the ghosties of the game.
Yeah, mine too.
You can basically hurl little grenades made out of either your pee, your poop, or even your shower water. And I'm guessing they have varying degrees of effectiveness. There you go. I imagine none of them are as good as your blood grenades.
They're a +3 to damage.
And I realize that Everything I'm saying about this game is probably just making people scratch their head. Like, what the hell is this about?
No one knows.
He's still trying to figure that out. That's why.
I really am, but I'm so into the story. I'm so into the upgrade system. Like, I've managed to actually upgrade my weapons today after stream, get access to better upgrades for like carrying capacity and things like that by just running errands for people. But it'll definitely speed up the pace of gameplay for later. So
In The Last of Us, you get the spare parts. In this one, you get fiber.
Yeah. Chipotle for dinner, poop grenades +2.
no, but they don't even like all I've seen him eat are those little bugs, the cryptobiotes that just look like, what are they called? Water bears?
Oh, tardigrades?
Tardigrades, yeah. They just look like giant float, and I say giant because tardigrades are so damn small. They're like the size of a caterpillar, but they're just tardigrade-looking flying grubs that you can pull out of what are apparently land coral and eat. So,
Game of the year.
This game is weird. I'm really digging on it, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. So,
Well, I will say this. My son, I have a 4-year-old son who's somewhat coordinated, but not at high speeds. So now whenever he starts tripping over himself, I'm just going to start yelling, L2, L2.
L2 and R2, quick!
You have a second. I'm intrigued. I've watched you play some of this, and I remember scratching my head because of the words, your bodily fluids pose no harm to him. And I remember thinking, what is this? And now I know a little bit more. Well, I don't know anymore, but I have more information, and I'm very intrigued.
This game is very much like a David Lynch experience.
On crack.
It's just out there.
Yeah. Palsh, any thoughts on Death Stranding?
I'm kind of with Werewolf there. It's so out there that I just want to pay attention more, because it's like I shake my head at everything that I've seen happen in this game, but at the same time, I don't want to look away. I want to see what he's going to do next. It's like the Howard Stern effect kind of thing, when he first came along and everybody's like, the shock jockey. That's what it's like. It's like a shock jockey kind of thing, but for a video game. Is he really doing this because he wants to, or is it just to keep people guessing? Because I'm constantly just questioning things.
No, I think this is legit Hideo Kojima without being saddled by lore from Metal Gear.
Yeah.
Right.
He got to create a brand new existence, a brand new universe, and run with it.
Yeah. And I mean, Metal Gear, as great as they are, like, they have so many like historical tie-ins and stuff like that, especially with, history and, war and stuff like that. But
yeah,
even then, they've had so many WTF moments in those games, and it's making those look realistic, like hyper realistic. So I'll never play it, but I am enjoying watching it. And I'll never play it just because I don't have PS4. So
Is anybody checking in on Kojima to make sure that he's okay? I'm feeling like maybe there might be some red flags in the game about his... I just hope he's okay. Hideo, if you're listening, we care. And thank you for your creativity.
I think he did outright respond to the negative reviews he was getting from the Western press and said that Westerners don't get it, or Americans don't get it, or something like that. And it's like, that's a little bit pretentious to say. Yeah. It's like, it's clearly not a game for everybody. Yeah. And that's fine. Not every game has to be.
There you go. I love that. Thank you for saying that, Werewolf.
But this is a game for me.
Yeah.
I see it.
And it's definitely a good choice. Like, there's commentary in that game with the like system and the roving mules that are former package delivery guys. Like, there's things in that game that are weird, but I can see where he's coming from as a commentary on the way the world is today, but to the extreme.
And where it's headed and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if you start, like, really thinking about the world that's built around what's like the weird circumstances in the world, you start to kind of get an idea of where he's coming from on the social commentary side of things.
Right.
But it's still got that weird, like, Silent Hill story going on out of left field that's constantly like, what is happening?
Yeah, it's definitely one of a kind. We'll put it that way.
Yes.
I was going to say the last thing, and it's something I said in GP stream earlier, is that a lot of games' active skills are reflexes and memory. This game's active skills are patience and planning.
And poop.
Which is planning and patience, depending on your bowel system.
I'm going to eat this, not for now, but for later. I love it.
Okay. Palsh, how about you? What's your honorable mention for Game of the Year?
Oh, it was tricky because I don't like playing favorites. Someone ever asked me what my favorite game is, I can give you a different answer depending on my mood or depending on what category. So picking one was really tricky. So I'm going to go with one I'm still playing now, and I've only been playing for the last week, but that's how addicted I am for a runner-up. That's what we're doing, right? Runners-up?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going with Resident Evil 2 Remake. I could easily say it's Game of the Year for me, but I've got a reason behind that I'll explain later. But this one it's hitting the nostalgia buttons on and off at the perfect intervals. Like, it's got me like... Resident Evil 2 is kind of where I started falling in love with horror games and movies. I used to be terrified, sleep with my parents every night because I was scared that zombies are going to kill us if I don't sleep with somebody. And until I was like 32 years old. It's crazy.
Can't sleep, clown will eat.
Yeah, exactly. But so like Resident Evil 2 has always been my favorite. It's kind of the chrysalis, the catalyst, for me falling in love with an entire genre of games. And it was part of my childhood. So I knew this game better than most other games I've ever played. So I only got to play this recently. Like, I only got it about a week ago. I went in completely blind. All my friends were streaming it, and as much as I wanted to support them, I couldn't watch. I couldn't even leave a lurk up because I just wanted to watch. I'm in love with it. It's the perfect amount of nods to the original and the perfect amount of updating to not have it so dated. So they try to cover a lot of things that, the original you call campy because, this and that. Like, why is the police station so convoluted and stuff? And this one, like they mentioned, it's, built out of an old art museum and stuff. So they kind of take
cool.
the original one and, yeah, they kind of just try to put it in reality a little bit more and not just say, hey, we're going to do this and this is how it is just because, like, we're going to make this fun. But it's not really realistic, But the puzzles and stuff like that, they kind of fit in more. And the gameplay is just great. It's satisfying. The graphics are beautiful. Every now and then, like, you're thrown for a loop because you expected it to be like carbon copy with better graphics and new engine. But, like, they changed things up, but at the same time, they kept it so much the same that it feels like you're playing that game, and it just blows my mind. I can't get enough of it. I can talk about it for hours, and like I just want to talk about it with other fans that are huge fans of it because there's so many little nods. And I'm on my second playthrough now, and I'm catching on to stuff that I never caught the first time. I was nervous going through it. I didn't want to get scared. I didn't want to run out of ammo. I didn't want to die, And after that, you start getting confidence, and next thing you know, you get cocky, and the more thing, your first playthrough is like 7 or 8 hours, the next time 4, and the next time after that is 2.5. Like, you get comfortable with it, and it's not that it gets boring, it's just you understand the system. Adapted itself the same way as me playing the original, so I think it's just so many levels of nostalgia for me that I can't get enough of it.
Did they change the tank controls in this one? Did they get rid of that, or?
Doesn't it control more like Resident Evil 4 now?
It's more like 4, yeah. It's kind of somewhere in between 7 and 4 for controls because you're doing third person over the shoulder. But I mean, third person over the shoulder is like a much better tank control anyways because it's the same control scheme, but your view is different.
Right.
So the tank controls were necessary in the original ones because otherwise every time the camera angle changed, you'd go veer off course. So it's kind of integral to it. And that became part of the series. People complained about it, and then when they took it out in Resident Evil 6, all of a sudden, people were like, this sucks, and that's part of it. I think the tank controls were part of the immersion for me. You can't jump around like your Mario and, pop off of different things and stuff, so the control kind of limits you, and it kind of adds to the suspense because you can't have these amazing reflexes, so you have to plan your movements more.
Yeah, Resident Evil is as much about the controls and the style than anything else, I think. That's why when they did Shenmue 3 recently coming out, people were kind of harping on it and complaining about it because it's kind of dated in gameplay. But it's a Shenmue game, right? Or Shenmue, however you want to say it. And it feels like that game from, 13 years ago. So they knew the style they're going for, and the people who like that series like it for that particular style. I think Resident Evil's the same way.
Yeah, and when they listened to enough people and changed it in Resident Evil 6, that's the worst game in the franchise, and and like it was like Final Fantasy 13 for me. I never gave it a second try, and I don't want to. So
2 is a game I've yet to really do much with. I haven't even done much looking into it because that's another one I've wanted to keep pretty much blind for myself, just because 2 was my favorite of the Resident Evil series.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I stayed away from it. So if you were a fan of the original, then I think you will thoroughly enjoy this one.
Cool.
Yeah, for me, it was the third one. Nemesis is the one I played when I was younger. I never really got a chance to play 2. My uncle was huge into it, though. It's one where I want to go back and play it now, or at least play the remake, because everybody's been raving about it. Like, this game is incredibly popular for Capcom. They've been killing it this past year. So I'm looking forward to playing it.
Yeah, and I also felt a little guilty for my game of the year being from this actual year. So,
what a backwards thing that is when we get to that point where we're like, I want to do game of the year, but I don't know about doing it for this year.
Yeah,
yeah. What a great year! That year was 1989. No, I'm with you guys. Resident Evil 2 for me was my introduction to the series, but it still has maintained as my favorite. I've seen some of the remake, and it looks dope as hell. But kind of like Palsh, I eventually want to get to it, but I haven't really sat down and watched it yet. Now, because I want to play through it. But yeah, if it's as great as everybody says it is, which I believe it will be, I'm excited for it. I just don't know if I will get exiled for playing a 2019 game on a retro-themed channel. So I
rebranded the Modern Therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah, just make a second channel, the Modern Therapy.
Maybe. So we'll see. Anyway, but yeah, I love to.
I just want to play it anyway therapy.
Right, yeah.
I'll just give you my stream key. Fuck it.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. This is Palsh 109. I have a cold, and that's all I'm going to say. I love Canada.
Yeah.
Drink Beaver Buzz.
Just give him your little talking face, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
All right. I guess that's me now. So my honorable mention for me.
Jake, what's your honorable mention for this?
Well, I thank you for asking. I wasn't sure if anybody was going to. So for me, it's tough because I'm terrible with starting games and never finishing them. Like, I'm really bad at it. And I always complain about companies that release games that are, I want to say too long, but maybe it's more accurate to say that they don't respect the player's time. Right? I mean, I'm older. I got kids. I work. I don't have a lot of time to play games. And if I play one, it's got to be really good for me to finish it. And I don't want to spend 80 hours anymore on these things. I love JRPGs, but they're too much of a time sink for me. So it's been very tough this past year to find a game that I can finish and enjoy in a short time frame. The longest game I played this year was probably Fire Emblem. I've had a few. I'll say that again. But there is one game that was just the other week came out, and it's Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. And I was so done on Star Wars after Last Jedi, and Solo especially. Like, I had zero interest. The new movie's coming out in a couple of weeks. My wife wanted to go see it, and I'm like, do we have to? Can we just watch it on Netflix a year from now? And I was done. But between Mandalorian and Jedi Fallen Order, the game, it's put me in such a mood. Like, we went and got the fanciest freaking tickets. I spent $30 on movie tickets. I never do that. I am down for Star Wars now. Disney has hooked me again, the son of a bitches. So Fallen Order is honorable mention because there is nothing groundbreaking about it. They're taking the best elements or elements from various different games. Like, the climbing reminds me of Breath of the Wild a little bit, or Uncharted. There's a checkpoint system that is very Dark Souls inspired. Combat reminds me, when you're swinging the lightsaber around, like you're Geralt from Witcher 3. They took in a lot of elements from various different games and smushed it all together.
You say took in?
But with a really great soundtrack and a really good game.
He did say took in.
It's adorable. Keep going.
Well, he also said sums of bitches.
Some's a bitches. Look, I get a little bit emotional when I've had a few drink and I'm talking about my Star Wars.
I love the passion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Baby Yoda is amazing. What's wrong with
haven't
you
watched
people?
it.
You guys
Haven't
are
watched
monsters.
it. Haven't watched it.
Oh,
Me either.
spoilers. Okay. Wow. All right. Stop the podcast.
Okay,
Let's go watch it.
I'm not on the Star Wars hype train by any means, but I'm probably more into Star Wars now than I ever was growing up. So take that as you will. Getting back on track, Fallen Order looks pretty cool.
It does look good. And that's got that actor,
Yeah,
right?
and-
The guy
I
from
don't know
Oh,
his
the
Shameless.
guy with
name, but-
punchable face. Yeah.
The not Joker from Gotham,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or the kid
He's a
from
fine
Click.
actor, but his face wants me to hit him in the
He's
face.
an amazing actor. And I feel bad I can't think of his name because I think it's Cameron Monaghan. Does that sound right?
That
Yeah, I
sounds
think that's it.
sounds about it.
Callahan Monahan? Or-
Let me check my
Alan
Instagram
Monaghan?
because I
I don't
actually
know.
follow him.
Oh. We're sorry if you ever actually hear this episode, sir. I really liked you
The one
in
thing they
Gotham.
did was... You're fantastic.
Cameron
podcast.
Monaghan.
Yeah. And what they did was really neat in this game with the graphics. The graphics are quite a bit, they're very high quality, and they even run on my potato computer upstairs. I'm really impressed. But what I like about the character models themselves is they digitized very accurately the faces of the voice actors. So there's a comedian, Deborah Wilson, and an actress. She used to be on Mad TV. Very funny person. She's one of the characters in this, playing a very serious role, and she nails it, and it looks just like her. They did an amazing job.
Wow.
So like the characters in this game are very relatable. They're very well done. The overall story, it's Star Wars, right? Like it's cheesy, it's a little bit hokey, but it's Star Wars. And there's a lot of parallels to like Rogue One as the standalone movie. Because it was standalone, they had to solve their story within that one movie, and it felt really tight. This game's the same thing. It's in the Star Wars universe, but it's its own contained story. It's relevant to the whole lore, I guess, if you want to say that, but it stands on its own so well. And I think it's just really great. And then, like, the mechanics, you can play like a Dark Souls. You can jack the difficulty up. If you like the Soul-style game, you can do that. Me, personally, I don't have the patience for it. I tried. I died to this one frog 3 times, and I threw the controller, and I said to easy. And then I played through the story, and the story was fantastic.
You know what? I can appreciate the single serving stories like that, though. Not every single experience out there needs to be like a 12-part saga. Sometimes you want a one and done kind of story. Experience it, have the good times, give it an ending. Don't leave the audience hanging with every single entry.
Every word you just said, Werewolf, sounds like a one-night stand. Get out there, have your fun, give it an ending. Don't leave people hanging, and be done with it. Don't take it to breakfast.
Is that how that works? I've been doing it wrong.
That's because you're polite, Palsh.
Right. You don't need her to get pregnant and going to the dark side.
And
Just not good.
Forgive me, but the actress that you were saying was from Mad TV. Your answer to this is going to depend. It's going to determine whether or not I play this game. Is it the actress who played Stewart's mom?
No, it's Deborah Wilson. I'm struggling to think of what character she played on Mad TV.
Oh, she did the with Sullivan. I can't remember her first name. The blonde woman. They did the
Now, Nicole Sullivan, I remember because she was on Scrubs.
Okay, so Deborah Wilson, I believe, did a few sketches with Nicole Sullivan as hairdressers.
Oh, I see her. Yeah, she's wonderful. Okay, I'll probably.
Yeah.
She
was
I was just going to say, if it's Stewart's mom, I'm not going to be able to play the game.
No, it's not her.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's a really solid title. Like I said, gameplay, not revolutionary, no, but they took the best elements of various series and mashed it together. It's great. It's also got one of the greatest intros, I think, of a game in recent memory. It opens up with Mongolian folk throat singing. And I know that sounds fun. Just trust me. It's a great game, for sure. All right. Moving along, I guess. Let's get to our now number ones, our official game of the year games.
Circle back around to GP.
Thank you. I forgot who we started with.
No, this is
I'm helping hands.
this is my game of the year. Okay, there's my official one, then there's one I have to make mention of. Not the honorable mention, but something I want to address because it's important. But my game of the year is River City Ransom Underground. And you guys know exactly why I'm going to say that, because before the podcast existed, before we were Press B to Cancel, we were 4 buddies playing that game together, River City Ransom Underground. And when we beat the game, not only was it fun, not only was it, a great callback to the OG River City Ransom, but playing it with you guys and all the updates and all the things that they did were so well executed. But by the time it was done, I was let down that it was done. I wanted there to be more and more and more and more. Because I was having so much fun. And I remember the conversation after we beat it, the 4 of us was like, well, do we play it again or do we play something else? And then, of course, the podcast idea came up. And, of course, it was a great idea and it's been a lot of fun. But
I want to say the podcast idea came up like the second or third time we played.
Oh, yeah.
And we just kind of were like, yeah, okay.
But I mean, like pulling the trigger on it and saying, no, let's do this, because even though we can't say any of the stuff we played while playing the game, we all had enough chemistry or whatever to do this. So that was my favorite new gaming experience of the year. And a big part of it is because of you guys. But I mean, the game itself was tremendous and it was so lighthearted and fun, but absurd, like the absurd level of that game. Not quite as bizarre as the Kojima entry from earlier, but really like just such a great continuation of what it was back then and adding in a bunch of new flair. And you can tell it was made by people who loved and cared about the original, and I like that. It came through, and it was, to me, like I said, the best gaming experience I've had for a newer game. Nobody can... y'all are crying, huh? Yeah. And then the other thing I have to say real quick, and I'm just very briefly, we don't have to have a discussion about it. I want to apologize to anybody who's ever encouraged me to play Super Ghouls and Ghosts. The Retrotherapy, we've been doing a year of blind playthroughs, and so my fringe game of the year is Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Played it in May for the first time, or April, as a blind run. Never wanted to play it, didn't look interesting. Fucking love that game. I was way wrong. Game of the year in my heart, Super Ghouls and Ghosts. But for new game of the year, River City Ransom Underground.
For River City, there's one just came out. River City Girls came out, but it's different by studio, and it's not the same. And when I heard that title, like, oh, another River City game, I was so hyped for it. And it's not a bad game. The reviews seem okay on it, but it doesn't play anything like the 4-player co-op, like just shit show that River City Underground is. And I was like sad, actually sad that I couldn't play with you guys and that it wasn't the same spark, right? So I think that's very telling. What the original was really great fun and just absurd characters. Like, isn't a principal a Bobo is in it?
Yeah, a Bobo is principal. A Bobo teach bad student lessons.
It was great.
The humor is
he
on
busts
point.
through the walls like Kool-Aid Man, just like in Double Dragon.
Yeah.
It was great. It was a wonderful experience. I hope that you guys, it sounds like Sick Jake did, but I hope you guys all enjoyed it as much as
Oh yeah,
as much as I did,
that game, it hit so many notes. It had random nods to just so many things of so many various beloved franchises of yesteryear
and some deep cuts, over your head stuff. Yeah, it was great.
There was so many things. There was so many references that one of us would catch that the others didn't, and it would be like, oh yeah. And I played through this game probably 2 full times, once with you guys, once with another friend of mine, and probably another 2 halfway through. Once with just Palsh before we did the all 4 of us thing, and then once just by myself. That's how much I liked this game.
It was just satisfying because they took what was great about it and then just improved on it, because it was just a labor of love kind of deal. And the music was just as great as everything else.
Tons of characters.
Yeah, tons of characters. Everybody had their own unique attacks.
Dozen playable characters after you unlock everybody.
Wow.
Yeah. One guy does a Hadou Glen. I mean, come on.
Yeah. And then there's these, there's, the Chads who are all just completely jacked and doing push-ups with their chins to hit you. And it's the right level of crazy. And the operating, not the operating system, but the way in which you have to accomplish stuff or level up is fantastic. You can go to saunas. You can go and eat beef jerky. I can't really describe it very well and do it justice, but you guys know. And if you've played it, then you get it. But if you haven't played it, get with it, act like you want it, download it, play it, find some friends, and make some connections, because it's fun.
Like, add it to your wish list or something and keep an eye out for a deal on this game if you're hesitant. But, I mean, it hits a deep sale a number of times a year. So this is a highly recommended one to get your hands on.
And like the original River City Ransom, I tried playing that after we played the new one, right? And I don't like the original at all. Like, at all. But Underground's awesome. A fantastic game. I wanted to play it again. Like, but the original, just something about it didn't click like this new one does. It's weird.
It's kind of like Borderlands 2. I can't go back to Borderlands the same because they just made the second one so much better.
Yeah.
And I hate it because I love that game.
All right. Wulff, how about you? What's your game of the year of 2019?
You know what? The game that I first another new game to me this year, and I mean, I'm keeping it relatively recent right now, not on purpose. It just happened to be like I've played a lot of older games, and I was playing a lot of games that were completely new to me this year, catching up on stuff on my PS4. So, God of War for the PS4. That's the one that got me. It did, but I mean, it's this story about Kratos and his son, and the relationship they don't have that becomes one by the end of the game. And just the overall game itself, the gameplay was a lot of fun. The combat was interesting and kept refreshing itself throughout the game because you got access to new stuff, but it didn't feel like you were burdened by the combat or anything, you know? I don't know, the story between the father and son, it got me right in the feels. And I mean, maybe that's because I have a 5-year-old son of my own. I don't know, but I was like, man. And there were points where I was boy, there were points where I was mad at Kratos for being such an ass to his son, Atreus. And then there were points where I was mad at Atreus for being such a dick to dad. So, you know,
it's almost like real life.
I actually cared about all the characters in this game. Like there was the blacksmiths. They were interesting and fun. One of them is just this crass, dirty old uncle type of bastard, and the other one is a total germaphobe, neat freak kind of guy. They're both very interesting stories. Like the lore behind the world, they make pretty deep cuts into the Norse mythology. And it's all super cool. It's pretty spot on as far as what they pulled and built off of. This was my first God of War. I haven't played any of them prior to this.
It might be a step down from here on in. Just fair warning.
What do you mean?
You started at a high.
Oh,
note,
yes.
know.
Yeah, but I had no connection with the characters prior to this. So it's not like, you know, I knew a lot of people who played the old God of War games and they were like, "Oh man, Kratos is so cool," blah, blah, blah. And then I never got into it. It wasn't the type of game I was looking for at the time. And this year it hit all the right notes for me, and I was so pleased to play through it.
The voice actor of Kratos, Christopher Judge, he used to play Teal'c on Stargate. Mm-hmm. He is so good, and the voice acting overall in the game is really good. But you're right, when he says "boy," I'm like, oh, it just hits all those notes.
Indeed.
And it's just like such a spectacle of a game with the fights and whatnot. It's just it almost got me to buy a PS4. I made a commitment to the PC gaming this generation. I told myself I would not get another Xbox or PS4. And it's been so hard because Sony has been knocking them out, those exclusives that are really fantastic. And God of War almost had me. I'm dying to play it.
Yeah, I think I'm the only one here who's played that one, so we don't have to dwell on it too long. Basically, if you haven't played it and you can, do so, please.
So, Palsh, how about you? What's your game of the year for 2019?
My game of the year, I was thinking hard and long about this in that order.
Ooh.
No, not really. I couldn't decide for a while, but I wanted to give this something. I couldn't decide between Resident Evil 2, which I've only been playing for last week, and something else. But I'm going with Hollow Knight. And the reason I gave this the edge over Resident Evil 2 was not because I enjoyed it better, because they're both, I can't compare them. They're two different games. They're both just so good. But I like the fact that Hollow Knight, first off, it's an indie game that hit it big, and for damn good reason, because it's just an amazing game. It hits so many like buttons. Again, I just like, you know, if you liked Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which I loved, of course, and the Ecovanias, this one is like a completely different storyline. It is the best Metroidvania I've played that's not a Castlevania basically. And I just really thought that after I reading up on it and discussing with people what they did when they developed this game and how they've worked with it, I didn't know this was a Kickstarter game until I was halfway through, and I'm really wary of Kickstarter games for the most part. But I mean, that's only because I tried to buy something on Kickstarter once and I got burned, so I just said, "Oh, it's all garbage." So
Hot
ignorance is
garbage.
bliss. Hot garbage, yeah. But no, I really like the fact that they destroyed their Kickstarter goal, and as a result, they added extra content. They have free DLC, which is the only way to do DLC personally. I can't stand the concept of a DLC. For me, it's just like, oh, why are you selling an incomplete game that's, stretching it out and trying to make money in the meantime and try to keep the buzz going. Like, I'm just very negative when it comes to DLC. And I like how they did it because first off, it was free. Second off, it was great. It wasn't just like a cheap extension of the game. There's just so many great ways that they did it, and apparently that they're working on a spin-off or a sequel. I don't know what to call it, but the people that contributed to the original Kickstarter campaign for Hollow Knight apparently get the new game for free.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it's little things like, yeah, and so like these indie devs are, I think they're doing everything right, and I think Capcom made Resident Evil 2 remake, and it is amazing, and they know what they're doing. They've made many mistakes along the way, but they're also one of the biggest names in the world. These guys are, I've never heard of them before. This is the game that they are famous for, and that's pretty much the only game they got, and they're killing it. And I just really wanted to throw my support to them because I think it's amazing. So I'm looking forward to anything else that they put out in the future, and just wanted to spread that enthusiasm to anybody who hasn't played it to definitely check it out, because retro inspired first off, and it is, like I said, one of a kind for a Metroidvania, which is not an easy thing to do. You're cartoon bugs, and the story is really deep considering how cartoony and how innocent it is. It can be at the same time really gothic and really morose, but still makes you feel good and makes you happy to play it.
It's definitely got a style, man.
Oh, yeah.
Like the whole world of the bugs and the grubs, and the color palette is very, very specific.
To me, it screams of like Tim Burton with bugs.
Yes.
Yes, I like that. That's a great analogy there.
Yeah, it's one where I don't think I gave it a fair shake when it first came out, and I have to go back and play it. Because I did try it, but I found it a little bit on the difficult side, or at least initially, and I think I fell off it, but I have to go back and try it.
I can see how that happened. What platform were you playing on?
It was PC.
Oh, okay. So you've got a nice big chunky controller, because I was going to say, if you're playing on Switch, those Joy-Cons are not going to do you any favors.
Ah,
Games like this, you need to have a big controller where it's easy to get from button to button and maneuver the joypad. Your hand's not going to too easily cramp up. This was the game that I probably first streamed when I started really getting into streaming. I had a lot of fun with this game, but for me, my biggest issue with the game is just how samey the color palettes are sometimes. I legit could not see enemies on certain screens.
Yeah, it can get tricky like that.
That's probably more a me issue than an issue with the game itself. So it's not something I hold against the game. That was just my issue with the game. But the boss fights and a lot of the level design and everything, the world building, it was all so much cool, so much fun, so cool. The boss fights specifically, they were so much fun to learn and figure out and master, save for like maybe one of them that just pissed me off to no end until I beat it after a dozen attempts.
The boss fights, some of them were brutal, and it harkened back to the days of NES Hard, where you stick through it and you get spidey and you want to beat it, and when you finally do, it's just such a satisfaction that you're just proud of yourself and you keep going. And I think the more bosses that you fight and the more that you struggle with it, I think that makes it just the more you want to play it.
I also like that this game sort of encouraged the player to be a little bit more mindful of where they traveled. It ate up one of your active charm slots, or maybe 2 or 3 of your active charm slots, to first off, be able to see the map when you're running around, or maybe see which room you're in, or see your specific location, things like that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you didn't get that. You just got to see the map. And that might have been a charm too, now I think about it. But I'm not sure.
You could look at the map anytime you wanted, but to see where you were in relation to everything, you had to use one of the charms. So yeah.
Yeah, so
that was always on for me.
Me too. I was so lost the few times I elected to go without that thing. I was like, I don't know what room I'm in. I have no idea. So I just started keeping it. It became a staple.
You very much have to have that, as far as I'm concerned. The world is, oh God, I want to say it is
Huge.
3 times bigger than I expected. And I'm not, and like, you know, I was about a quarter of the way through the game, and I thought I was half done. I thought I was like 3/4 of the way done. And my friend saw my map, and he said, "Oh yeah, you're doing good. You're about 30% in." I'm like, "What?"
Wow.
So, yeah, and so it's a big game, and it's challenging. It'll take you a while, but it is worth every penny. I think it's just great.
And then there's the challenge areas where like the platforming. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't know if you did many of those or any of them, but I did. I remember doing the one where everything is white and it's like a lot of clouds and stuff, and you got to jump on buzzsaws and everything. It's a lot of platforming, a lot of perfectly timed attacks to things that'll hurt you to bounce up off of them and keep platforming. I had a lot of fun with it. It was very difficult, but also I felt very accomplished after completing it.
Yeah, the controls for that, they're so tight in the best way. So if you die, you're like, that was my fault.
Yeah.
That was my fault. You're never going to throw the controller in, you know, like the Castlevania mode, like when you're playing the original Castlevania games and you get thrown off because something hits you mid-jump and stuff. No, it's nothing like that. It's challenging on a whole different level.
Like Dark Souls combat was always difficult, but I always felt if I died, I felt a lot of time I died because of the slowdown of the animations. It was fluid, but there wasn't as much control over your movements.
Yeah.
Whereas with Hollow Knight, I mean, there's obvious Dark Souls inspiration here, but combat is fast and, like you said, controls very tight, and you're precise with your movements, right? You have full control of your character, and if you're right, if you die, and I died lots, never did I say it's because the game has bad controls or gameplay. It's just too hard for me. But it was, again, my fault.
Yeah, exactly. So it's definitely, it's just one of those games where I don't really have a complaint about it, except for the fact that it's just, there's so much that I want to do.
Yeah.
There's so much to it, and getting like 100% on everything, it is a big pill to swallow if you want to do that. So.
All right. Awesome. I guess that leaves us
Jake.
Yeah, bring it home, Jake.
Jake, what about you, man?
Sorry, I just go back to GP laughing at my game when I mentioned what it was. So for me, my game of the year, it's not new to me, but I played it a whole lot this year. And I got to start by saying I don't like beat 'em ups. Everybody raves about Streets of Rage and Final Fight and all those games. I don't like them. I never really got into them. The only one that I really cared for, and it came from when I was a kid, my friend had a Master System, and I had a lot of fun memories going to his place to play it. And the one game we played quite a bit was Double Dragon. My game of the year is Double Dragon for the Master System.
See, I thought you were just building up. I thought you were going to start talking about something more recent. So if it wasn't for the fact that I knew what you were going to say, I would have been like, huh?
I've not played this game. I never really played much Double Dragon in general. What I did play was when I was younger, and I sucked at it, and it was on the NES. Like, that's the one I played.
Yeah.
And I even cheesed my way through that game, I want to say late last year, with save states, because I finally got fed up with trying to do a full single setting of that game. I just couldn't do it. I'm hoping the Master System version is better. Otherwise, I'm calling shenanigans on your choice.
For once, people are disagreeing with me. That never happens. Okay, you're right. So I've been trying to get into the NES Double Dragon because I know that's the most common one people have been playing. The problem I have with that port of the game is, and we mentioned before in the podcast, Nintendo, when they brought certain franchises over to the NES, they kind of insisted there be something more unique or additions made to the game to separate it from the other versions. Because Double Dragon as an IP, or as the first one has been ported to literally everything. If you want a hot garbage time,
it's the Skyrim
Double
of the,
Dragon
of
port.
the mid-'80s.
Yeah, well, play the Atari 2600 version. It exists. It uses one button and a joystick. And if you play Double Dragon on the NES, you know that you really should have 3 buttons for that game, right? In order to jump, you need to push A and B at the same time. It's terrible. The Atari only has 1 button.
You have an automatic jump kick as soon as you do anything with it jumping, so.
Right, but you have to unlock it in the NES version. But so the Master System, not to get too far off track, they are different games. The NES has technical limitations with it, right? The reason I like the Master System one, I know, never heard of that before. 8-bit systems being crappy, what? But the Master System version was co-op. You could play with a friend. In fact, it was meant to be played with a friend.
Oh, wow.
It's on-screen co-op. As well, the NES version had a restriction of, I want to say, 2 enemies at once on screen. And they were almost, I think they had to be the same sprite when they did it. So if it was 2 Abobos.
Goodness, I
think
you're right.
Yeah. So the sprites looked a little bit better on the NES versus Master System, but you only had 2 enemies on the screen at one time. So, I mean, that, and for whatever reason, Nintendo, I guess, for that port, had shoehorned in some platforming elements, which were terrible, right? And jumping in that game is bad. And it's bad in the Master System as well. But nowhere in the Master System version is there moving platforms or things you have to navigate. The only jump that's really a pain in the butt is the Mission 3. You're in the jungle area or forest area, and there's a bridge broken. You have to jump across it. That's the only real tricky jump.
Oh, that one sucked on the
Otherwise,
NES
jumping's
too.
Optional. Yeah, but the NES had so many other jumps that were just terrible.
Yes.
Right. So Master System has co-op, first off. I want to say 3 enemies max on screen, if not 4. And you can have different enemies on screen at once. The first level, the end boss is a red Abobo, and there's another guy on the screen, or 1 or 2 guys on the screen at the same time, I believe. But it's great for that. I played a lot of Double Dragon in the arcades when I was a kid. It was Double Dragon, and it was a lot of Rampage, the original Rampage.
Nice.
And this is very true to the arcade. It does not look as nice. The sprites are designed quite different. But the stage layout and the music is almost spot on, or at least nostalgia tells me it was very similar to the arcade game. It's also easier, more forgiving. The NES version, I say that there's no continues, I think, in that one.
No, there are not.
Right. And that's ass. Really, that's stupid, okay? That's hard for no reason.
Could not agree more.
Right. So Master System, you have unlimited continues for the first 3 missions. There's only 4 missions. You have unlimited continues for the first 3. It's only at the 4th mission that whatever you had, you have to finish the 4th mission. Wow, I've had a few. The 4th mission, you have to use your remaining lives, and that's all you get. So if you finish mission 3 with 1 life, you only have 1 life and no continues for mission 4. That's a bit annoying, but it prepares you the first 3 missions to kind of make your way through the game. It is definitely challenging some of the fights, but you have that cushion if you need it. The difficulty ramp up is pretty smooth. First mission, the enemies you face, and then once you get to mission 3, it ramps up quite a bit. And then 4, it gets a lot harder. But it's just a great progression all the way through. But I love it in co-op because you're just battling with a friend, right? And I get it now for beat 'em ups. For people who play beat 'em ups, I could never get through the first few stages. I just never understood, how can you get there with 1 life bar? How do you guys survive that? But when you realize when you're playing these games, you got to find the certain moves and when to use them. It's very much a placement of your sprites. When you're playing Double Dragon on the Master System, you want to bob and weave a bit to avoid getting jump kicked by the enemies, for example. You want to know that the way the AI moves, you can kind of predict the way it moves if you watch carefully enough and you can understand how the game works. Picking that game apart this past year to try and get my time down, because I was trying to stream it for Retro Block Party. And originally when I played it, it took me an hour and 10 minutes to beat it, which is too long. So I wanted to get it down. And I just played it over and over again. And I just got such a groove learning the ins and outs of that game. And I can do it now in 30 minutes, no problem.
Wow.
It's gotten to a point where I love playing that game so much, and I can just sit down and relax playing it. I've started speed running it in my off time. I hate speed running. I'm not a speed runner, ever.
Who are you?
I know. Who am I? It's like I'm not a Jake. But I actually want to speedrun this game. Like it's just, there's no glitches. Well, there's a couple, but it's not like your zips and weird screen tricks like some speedrunning games. Double Dragon is just a straight, you got to play it, and you got to play it well. You need to know what moves to use and how to position yourself with the AI. It's just as true a game as you can get. I love it. The end sequence is also especially noteworthy if you're playing co-op. Well, I guess the spoilers, but the Nintendo version, for a 30-year-old game. The end of the Nintendo game, you beat the, I don't know, what Big Ugly with the machine gun. You then face your brother. Is it Bimmy? I guess his name is. And he's the end boss, and he's super cheap. In the Master System version, if you play co-op, after you beat the guy with the machine gun, you must beat your brother to death. Your co-op becomes one-on-one, and that's who wins the game. The first time that happened, my friend and I were dying laughing when one of us won, the other one died. It was just hilarious that you're playing co-op for 4 missions, and you get to the end, and you got to beat on your partner. It's just hilarious. It's great. And I don't think any other beat 'em up game has done quite that. I thought that was pretty unique.
That's quite a twist ending for an NES, or for an 8-bit game, not NES's Master System. But still, that's pretty cool.
I want to play it now because when you take it, the platforming thing, that sounds like a whole lot more appealing.
Yeah, I might go back visit this one.
Yeah, and you have all your moves from the beginning. You can do the elbows and drop kicks all right from the get-go, and it's fine. Like the Nintendo one is not a bad game. It's fine. I do like it, but the Master System one for me just really has that nostalgia bell. It just rings it really clear. It reminds me of the arcade game. The music is there. The gameplay's there. It's a fun co-op game. And I've played it so much this year that I've actually started speedrunning it. And I've never, ever said that word with my name in a sentence before. So for me, it's the clear game of the year for me, just in how much I've enjoyed that retro title.
I think the only thing I dislike about what I've seen of that game, that version, is that the coffee mug fists aren't quite as prominent. That's it.
And that's a pretty key criteria in our 8-bit games.
It is for me. That was the 3rd video game I've ever played. It's high in my regard.
All right. Well, I think that will do it. That is, of course, the game of the year for us, not just retro, modern too, or anything between. The new to us
all over
game
the
of
board.
the year titles for Press B 2019. I think this is something we're going to make a tradition. Maybe not as many drinks than Jake before he does it. But that's fantastic. Want to thank everybody who's here. Palsh, where can everybody find you?
You can find me here. And every now and then I do stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/Palsh109. So it's PALSH109.
And Werewolf, where can folks find you?
They can find me on Twitch and Twitter at Werewolf, WAREWULFF.
And GP is so stunned about my selection for my personal game of the year, he is speechless. But you can find him at The Retrotherapy on twitch.tv or search The Retrotherapy over on YouTube's. I think he's on Instagram and Twitter too. You'll see him around. He streams a lot. He's a good guy. Mind the coughing. But we love him. And I'm Sick Jake. You can find me on Twitch, mostly Twitter. Just like everybody says, just right here. Here on Press B to Cancel. It's been a hell of a year. Here's to another year going forward. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all for listening.
Cheers, pizza.
Kick 2020 this.
Special thanks for music go to Arthur the Ancient, found on SoundCloud, or The Last Ancient on YouTube. For more episodes, please visit our website, pressbtocancel.com. As well, feel free to like or subscribe at Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else you like to listen to your favorite shows. As always, thank you. This has been
Press B to Cancel.
Press